that also goes for, this is a theory I've had for a long time. Like, let's say you have somebody that you really connected with, like when you were younger. And we talked in our last show how you were like, I'm a different person sometimes every day because of like growing and experiencing and
Mhm.
just trying to be better, whatever. So who you were like at 21 isn't who you are today. So,
Right.
like, let's say at 21 you had this like connection with a boyfriend or a friendship, and then it went south or whatever. And I especially feel this in the romance when people, like, they're with somebody and then there's a falling out, they don't understand why this had to happen this way, so there's no closure. So maybe they move on, they realize they're even better off, but then maybe out of nowhere sometimes they think of this person and like there's no trigger there, it's just out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, I know I've done this where it's like, maybe it's meant to be. Like, why did it? And then all of a sudden I would text them and they'd be like, I was just thinking of you. And so it's like, I'm like, oh my gosh. So
Ooh.
my theory is that maybe that ex was thinking of me. And because I haven't let go of that energy, that's why it's called letting go. I still felt it, but I confused it for being meant. Oh, there's unfinished business. But really, is this guy's jacking off to my picture over here? So, like, of course, I'm gonna feel this intense energy, and then I'm gonna think something else, and then I'm right baited where the guy is, where he's like, "Oh, I just jacked off to Shelly. Now she's texting me. Awesome." Like, yeah, I still got
I,
that power, and
I
it's
love
like this
that you
whole.
bring this up. I love that you bring this up because I have this weird phenomenon that's been happening pretty much my whole life, especially when texting started being a thing, where I'd be thinking of somebody and either A, I gotta text them, or I'm just thinking. Mostly it's like, hey, I need to call this person, I need to text them. And then I get a text from them. And maybe someone I don't hear from sometimes. Sometimes you have done that to me, my friend Tracy, from some guys from my past, like guys I used to like sleep with as friends or whatever. There's no animosity, so I'd be like, oh, I hope they're okay. They're checking on me on my phone, and I do think there's something to it that science can't explain yet. I mean, I am in college. I'm in college for science, biology. I'm a science nerd. So one of the biggest things about being a scientist is having an open mind that you don't know it all, and there's still things that need to be discovered. We don't have the resources yet to discover everything. So that's why when people meet me, they're like, oh, like, you're such a nerd or whatever, etc. And I'm like, no, actually, the thing about scientists is having an open mind. That's the biggest thing. We're not like rock solid on, oh, well, there's no proof. Oh, well, there's no proof. So I do think there's something to this because this happens to me when I say astronomically so much. And I think that goes back to me being sensitive and whatever that means, where I can either feel the other person telepathically thinking about me or sending a message to me or whatever. So I'm actually really glad you brought that up because I've never truly said it out loud. The only times I've said it out loud is when someone hits me up and I was like, oh, I was just about to text you. That's so weird.
Energy, and life is energy, and I think that's why it's good to talk about, I feel, because I think there's sometimes people, I used to be one of them, had a hard time letting go of either friendships or romance or whatever because I was confusing like energy just being energy to, especially like when you have sex with somebody, like whether you want to look at it casual or not, that's just energy on a different level. It's just on a different level. Whether you like I said, there's people out there that are very casual about it, and that's fine. And then you got people like me that are stage 5 clingers, and then you got people who go even further than that, and then everybody in between. But we can't dispute for one moment you are combining yourself with somebody.
You know what?
Intense.
The best way that I could describe this for anyone out there that is like, how do you like get their energy? How are you connected? For people who like sleep around and don't get connected. Okay, so on Futurama, Bending Rodriguez, he knocks up this other robot who is she's a vending machine. And when they like, have you seen this?
Oh
So
yeah.
like, in his like sex lessons or the Birds and the Bees chat or video that they show him, the robots, the way they do it is they hook on to whatever and they download each other's computer information. And when I first saw this video, me being a Futurama nut, I've seen all the episodes. First of all, side note, they're restarting the Futurama series with all the main characters and cast, so I'm like excited. Okay, back to what we're talking about. That's how I would describe what you're saying right now, because when people talk about, oh, you know, sex is energy and this and that of a whole different level, like literally when you stick it in like a USB into a computer, you are downloading energy, their information, whatever it is. So make sure everyone who's listening, make sure who you sleep with, they got the right energy, because you don't want the wrong information, okay?
It's so true. And talking about Futurama, is Bender, the voice of Bender, on yet? I know last time you said he wasn't. It was like a controversy.
Yes, John DiMaggio. Let me double check because I want to say yes. I mean, look, Bender Bending Rodriguez. Obviously, I'm a Rodriguez, so we're obviously cousins in some way. So I needed John DiMaggio to be back on it. I'm gonna double check with you right now because this is important information. This is very important. March 2nd, 2022, Bender voice actor John DiMaggio finally joins Futurama Revival. I'm back, baby.
I love it. Here's another Futurama themed. I'd like to get your point of view on this. So, whenever there's, I think, one episode in particular I could think of for sure. I think maybe twice it happened, but for sure the one time. The professor had something where it was like, I forget what they called it, but it was like where he had like this pointing device and he would just push the button and it would like
Fingermonger.
yeah. And so then, but they went so far that like they went past time and all this, and it was just like a white room. The Simpsons have done that too. That makes me so uncomfortable because when I was a girl, up until, I mean, maybe it peppered in here and there in my young adulthood. Knock on wood, hopefully it doesn't happen to me again, but it's been many years. I've had this reoccurring nightmare, and I'm in that white room that there's nothing. It's not even a room. That whiteness, that emptiness. And then there's this thing, and it almost looks like a microchip or something. And then it starts to like build at the bottom, and then it goes faster and faster and faster and faster. And as it goes faster, it feels like there's a million pins hitting me at once. And then when I was younger, I used to wake up like yelling and like with my eyes open and everything. What do you think about that?
That sounds like, it sounds like an existential kind of crisis where it's like, or unsureness about the world, because that kind of makes me think about how, first of all, scientists are recognizing that we're in a what they call a simulation. Maybe not exactly like the Matrix, but if you know, okay, I'm about to get super nerdy. Ready? If you know anything about colors, so magenta, you know what the color magenta is. I'm sure our viewers do too. Magenta is not a real color. Okay. So on the spectrum of light, this is all going to make sense once I bring it together. There's a spectrum of light. And at the end of like red and blue or indigo or whatever, that's anything between that. There's nothing, you can't really make a color with both of that. So your brain fills in what it thinks that color is. So really when we see magenta, we're seeing like a purple, blue, and pink, very, very bright. And so we know it as magenta. Another thing to look up at is called Stygian blue. There's a bunch, and yellows, we don't really see yellow. Yellow is just really is how our brain sees a bunch of green and red. What? Yeah. So we only have green and red cones. So everything that we see in between of that, our brain makes up to make sense of it. Now the way light works is it hits an object. Okay, so here's my remote. It hits the object and bounces back. So you'll see that it's black. So a lot of this object is absorbing a lot of color. So we're not really getting a lot of colors back, maybe a little bit just to be able to see the shape of it, right? So the way we see objects is how the light bounces off things. That's not really what color they are. That's the light that's hitting our eye. That's what we see, and our brain will make an image of it, of what it thinks it should be. This is called matrixing, which is funny because matrixing, it's all related in a way. There's a reason the movie was called The Matrix. And that's why they say, I mean, that's like my amateur version of explaining like this is a simulation. Like what you're seeing isn't really what it is how our consciousness, our senses are sensing everything.
Well, you know, I've never seen The Matrix, and I'm kind of scared to watch it now because I'm just, long story short, aware of a lot of things that I wasn't for a really long time. I don't like to discuss those things because I take them very serious and I'm very private about it.